What if I told you you can communicate with your higher self? Another version of you in the other side of the veil that remembers all your past lives, understands your ego, personality, your troubles, and already has all the knowledge that you'd like to know right now, and can give you a guidance on this current life. Tracy Ventura is a quantum healing hypnosis practitioner, along with many other certifications, where she's able to hypnotize you to tap into your past life, your higher self, and even the creator. If you guys are stuck in life, if you feel lost, if you feel like you don't know your purpose in life, if you have some childhood trauma that you just cannot get over, any love and relationship questions, tapping into your higher consciousness can give you those answers. Just by talking to Tracy within the couple of days, my life perspective has changed, and I think my spiritual growth has amplified like times 10. So with the guidance of Tracy, here the clients are able to tap into their higher consciousness, their higher selves, and they're speaking as their higher selves. And Tracy is asking the questions that the clients wanted to know about their life.
So moving forward to the time just before you take your last breath in that lifetime, I want you to tell me, where are you? What do you see? What's going on around you?
I'm in my home. I've been wounded in battle, and my wife is there with me.
Creator is showing me that his hand is in front of the dad, and his creator's hand is as big and tall as the dad, and it's a shield.
And this higher self that you're embodying is able to give you clarity on your life and your questions. Then they wake up from the sessions. Sometimes some clients remember pieces of it. Some clients do not remember it at all. I think for the audience who doesn't know, what is a healer and what do you do exactly?
But what I do is I help people in touch with their higher self, which is them, so that they can get all the answers that they already have inside of them. So we can get so buried under the ego, the persona, the personality that we've developed, that we're not hearing clearly from that. So I give my clients through higher self hypnosis an opportunity to get in touch with their higher self, the aspect of their soul that didn't come across the veil of forgetfulness. That part of them that, and I guess if you want to say, stayed on the other side in the spirit realm, because if we were to put all of our soul into our body, it would be too much. We couldn't do it. So it's almost like we leave a little part of us, our soul, behind to act as a GPS for it. And if we hear it, if we listen, which we all hear from it all the time, but do we listen? Not necessarily always, because, we're buried in beliefs and traumas and dramas. And so I help people get in touch with that.
So our soul isn't just this one ball. So we have like our higher selves, we have us in our physical 3D right now and other stuff.
Yeah. So what I've learned from speaking to people's higher selves every day is, it's like if you have a pen, there's almost like that's like our oversoul, I guess you want to call it. And then there's it fragments off into souls, individual, like other souls. So that soul is here as me, is here as Tracy, but a part of that soul even is like on the other side of the veil that knows all of my past lives. It knows everything I've been through. It knows my karma. It knows my lessons. But when I came through the veil of forgetfulness, this part of me that's incarnated in this body, I went through the veil of forgetfulness.
But if we remembered everything, don't you think we won't do the same mistakes again?
I think we would be distracted. I think we'd be highly distracted because we tend to incarnate with a lot of the same people, not everyone, of course, but a lot of the same people. And we'd still be trying to play out and work out those dramas and traumas from those other lives. And we just have all this extra baggage that, we already have enough baggage that we make for ourselves in this life. Imagine if we had, hundreds of past life baggage we were also consciously aware of and trying to work out down here. I think it would just be chaos.
How did you get into this as a healer in hypnosis?
I was always working a regular job in the Matrix real world. But I would come home crying. This is when, with my second husband, I'd come home crying, going, I didn't come to this planet to work in a cubicle, and I'd be bawling. I'm like, I'm just miserable. I know I came here for more, because if I came here for this, I don't want this. He was just beside himself, like, I don't know what you mean, just go to work, And I just really followed the breadcrumb trail of excitement. And I've learned, and I tell my clients, if you follow the breadcrumb trail of excitement, it will lead you to your purpose. It may not lead you tomorrow or the next day or the next week. It led me through a lot of healing for myself.
When you found your purpose, did you see your spirit guides or aliens coming to your dreams?
No, but I was sitting out on my steps one night and I was looking across the street, and my neighbor's tree started talking to me. And I was sitting there like, what?
Like audio?
And I'm listening in my mind telepathically.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm sitting there going, I think that tree is talking to me. And it just kept talking. And it was just, I probably sat there for over an hour listening to this tree talk to me. And then I would talk back in my mind and ask it a question or say something, and it would answer back. And I was like, well, this is strange. I don't think I can tell anybody about this because this is just blowing my mind. But it just sat there and poured out all this wisdom. And I wish I had kept a journal of it because it was incredible stuff and I don't remember any of it now. But I would go out there almost every night and have a conversation with this tree.
I mean, was he telling the secrets of the universe or just talking about the people on the streets?
Just everything. Life and creator, God, people in general, just a lot of wisdom, like high level wisdom. Everything is creator. So it was creator talking to me through a tree, right? It was creator talking to me as the consciousness of a tree.
Can Tracy explain to us what higher self hypnosis exactly is?
Yeah. So in my sessions, we're channeling. My client channels their higher self, and I give them a lot of coaching on how to channel their higher self and what that feels like and what that looks like and how to know if they are, because most of my clients end up being conscious channelers. So, when you see people like Abraham Hicks, different people who channel, that is, and they're walking around and they've got their eyes open and they're talking, that's conscious channeling. And so trance channeling is when you basically, quote unquote, wake up and you don't remember a thing. So I have a few trance channelers that come across my path, but most people are conscious channelers. And the way they describe it is, it feels like they're sitting in the backseat of a car and someone else is driving. And my clients will come out of their session saying, it was me, but it wasn't me, but it was me. And they'll remember usually most of what they said, but not necessarily everything.
Can you briefly discuss how that stage of being put into hypnosis works and how you do it?
First thing that we do is I'll meet with my clients for about 3 hours and we're just chatting and getting to know each other. And I want to know their goals. So I tell them, tell me the top 2 areas of your life that if you could change, get healing or answers for these 2 areas, you believe the rest of your life would be so much better. And so a lot of people will say trauma healing from growing up, or they'll say, I really want clarity and direction on my marriage, or I really want to know my purpose. I'm like, start at the beginning. Tell me what it was like growing up, mom, dad, significant relationships. I'm listening for what they say and for what they don't say. So I want to know where I feel there might be buried trauma. And a lot of times people will start having an emotional reaction or crying, talking about something mom or dad did. And they're like, oh, I thought I was over that. But the emotions let me know there's still some kind of buried emotions there. I put together a list of questions that is an outline to ask their higher self. Several of my clients have described this process as therapy on crack. They said, I feel like I got what would have probably taken me about 2 years in therapy. Get all these answers. I'm pretty forward, very nicely. I'll tell people, is it okay if I tell you what I'm kind of seeing? Because I've sat under people's higher selves for a number of years now. And so I kind of see a lot of patterns on non-acceptance of mom, expecting mom should have been this perfect human being as a mother, instead of realizing that mom is a soul here on her journey too. And she may actually be a much younger soul than you.
Wow.
And so she's not necessarily or didn't necessarily do the things you thought she should have done. And that's the ego. The ego is like, well, she should have been like this. She should have known better. She should have done these things differently. That's not how our life journeys work. A lot of times, parents can be even younger souls than us, especially to those on a spiritual journey. And after we're done with that, then we take a lunch break. I give them a meditation to work on over lunch. And then we come back. I put them in this walk them through this really nice guided meditation where they get really relaxed. Then we end up in another life or past life. And then I get to learn all about that life. So it might be on Earth, it might not be on Earth. And so you get to hear some really interesting stories. from there, when they die in that life, I lead them through the death scene. And when they die, I ask them, where do you go next? What do you do? What do you see? What does it look like? What does it feel like? And so I'm trying to get them to describe for me what it looks like in the spirit realm and what they do there. So I hear a lot about planning sessions and life reviews and going to the Akashic library. So I hear lots of stories like that. Then I call forth their higher self and start with the list of questions that we put together in the first half of the session. Of course, the first question being, why did you show her or him that past life that you did? What was the reason for showing her?
I really want to ask, is there any one really fascinating story with your clients that you could kind of share with us?
I got a fun one. This was maybe about 4 years ago, and he was actually a friend of mine, so it was a fun session to do. He was devastated in this life and feeling really like a victim because he had a very close friend in this life, these are his words, screwed him over on a business deal. So they had started a business together. And it was his lottery ticket, he said. I mean, it was a very lucrative, very good business. And what happened was the friend screwed him out of the business. I don't know the details of what happened. And that also ended up crashing his marriage because his wife got so frustrated with him being in this victim mode, losing the business and all the stress involved with that their marriage fell apart. So he was even more devastated that he lost his wife over this situation. And he feels like this whole thing with this friend just completely ruined his life. So we went and did his session, and he was a trance channeler. So he didn't remember anything that happened once he got out of it. But it was very interesting because we looked at a past life. He was with this same person, and he said, I'm not sure if we're brothers or just really good friends. But I was not nice to him, he said. And I said, give me an example of that. And he said, it was my friend or my brother's 12th birthday. He really wanted me there for his birthday. And I purposely didn't go. I knew it would hurt him. And so he said, I did it on purpose. And it did. It hurt him. He couldn't tell if they were brothers or close friends. But they stayed in each other's lives. When they got older and got married, this, let's call it his brother, ended up having a wife. And my client cheating with his wife.
Wow.
Behind his back. And it was this same soul of the woman who is my client's wife in this lifetime. Right? So the three of them, like the three stooges, right? They did this whole thing in another life. On his brother's deathbed, he told his brother that he had been cheating. And the brother said, I know. He dies in that life. And he didn't feel bad about it. Like my client in that life had no regrets about it. It was all about just being mean to him. So they went up in the spirit realm, and he was describing the scene in the spirit realm. And he was so excited. He's like, let's do it again. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. But this time you get to screw me over. And so I said to my client, when he's under, I said, why? Because, balancing karma. And he said, no, because it's fair.
Oh.
So he was all about wanting to be fair. And so the friend was like, sure, we can do that. I can go down there and I can screw you over next time. Sure, not a problem. And the wife said, guys, I'm done with this. Like, I want to move on to other things. I really don't want to do this anymore. Like, no, I've been your wife and I've been your wife and I'm done with all this. I want to move on to other things. And he's like, no, please, 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 come on, one more time, begging her one more time. And she said, okay, fine. One more time, but I'm divorcing you in that life. And that's going to be the marking of the end of this little cycle of the three of us. And he was like, okay, fine, let's go. That explained so much in his life right now and gave him a completely different perspective and really, really bumped him out of that feeling like a victim. Because he got to see firsthand that he was the one that wanted this whole scenario to take place of his friend, quote unquote, screwing him over and his wife ending their little incarnation cycle right here down on earth through a divorce.
Wow. So did he go and apologize or just live on and just kind of die and then go to the spirit world?
Yeah. I mean, he's still here. And it just really, like I said, it really just shook him out of feeling like a victim.
Wow.
And it gave him almost like room to breathe. Like, okay, now it makes sense. Totally get it. This was all planned. This was my idea. So let me just carry on. And it just almost like freed him from that. It gave him a lot of freedom in knowing this, a lot of healing and freedom in knowing this. So it really, that's the perfect example how it absolutely can change your life.
Well, how effective is Zoom calls versus like in person?
So I used to do them in person before the big thing happened in 2020. I don't want to say the word because I know there's AI that scrubbed the videos. So the big thing that happened in 2020, I was doing them in person. And then I got to a point after my self-healing journey that I could actually finally start hearing from my spirit team. Like they were standing next to me. Of course, it's all telepathic. But it was pretty cool because it was something I always wanted. So I heard my team clearly say to me, "You're taking it online immediately." And I was like, what? No, the method I learned, they say you can't take it online. And then I heard my higher self say to me, "Tracy, have you ever read a headline that said, man dies after being stuck in hypnosis for 30 years? And I said, no. And my higher self said, of course, because it's not possible. So you're taking it online. So go find someone who's already doing hypnosis online, learn from them, and then take it online immediately. And by this time I had already learned, like I said, how to listen to my spirit team. So if any glitches would happen or anything, I knew that I have them in my back pocket right there to help me troubleshoot anything. So I did my first session with a really young girl out on the West Coast somewhere, and it went amazingly. And she was a trance channeler. So she didn't remember a thing when she came out of it. And I got some really great advice from her higher self too, because I end the session saying, do you have anything else you want to share with her or me before we end this session? And her higher self said, you need to market this and you need to spread this worldwide, because this stuff here, this changes people's lives and it changes the world. I think it's amazing because people get to be at home in their own beds. They get to go let their dog out, they get to go make lunch for their kids on our lunch break. So I actually like it better and it works really well.
When you say your higher self is talking to you, are you meditating? Are you dreaming? Are you awake, like cooking?
Usually I'm brushing my teeth or in the shower. It's where we all hear a lot from our higher selves. We just don't know it's our higher self, right? But yeah, while I'm cleaning the house, a lot of times I have a long conversations with my spirit team when I'm out walking my dogs. I have a husky, so I take it for an hour and a half walk every day, him for an hour and a half walk, and I hear a lot from my team while I'm walking my dog too, because my mind's a little more quiet. But I really just have to say, hey team, what do you want me to do here? What do you want me to do now?
I know your experience, but people like me, how do I know if I'm imagining things or if it's really my higher self?
Your higher self, your spirit team is always going to be loving. If you hear your self-critic come forward, that's obviously not your higher self. That's not your spirit team. It will tell you, hey, you really need to do this. It's not going to be in a degrading, demeaning, self-critical type of way. And it comes with a lot of trust. Really learning how to say, I don't know if that was my team or if it wasn't my team, but it was positive and it was encouraging and it's what I needed to hear. So I'm just going to assume that's my team and I'm going to go with it. I would say almost like a fake it till you make it. And then you'll start realizing, no, I'm pretty sure that was my team because I don't think I would have said that to myself.
Is there anyone who can't be hypnotized, who have a hard time hypnotizing?
You say hypnotizing, and I know I call it higher self hypnosis. I actually like to call it just putting you in a really relaxed guided state. So as prep work for this, I always have my clients do practice guided wake time while they're awake meditations. And I have a number of them on my website. I have people once in a while who really just get in their head and they really just don't want to let go. And some people are afraid to hear the answers, really afraid to hear. They know what they want to hear, but yet they don't want to hear it. Their ego, their persona blocks them. My spirit team taught me, I'll just call it a backdoor method for getting people into that relaxed state. I actually had to just use it last week on a woman who just was pretty resistant, like, oh, I'm not hearing anything. I feel like it's me. I'm not hearing anything. Well, it is you. That's number one. But okay, let's do this. So then I'll lead him through a backdoor method that my spirit team taught me. And if that doesn't work, which is rare, but it does happen, then I give them a lot of coaching. Because I've heard from people's higher selves so many times with many of the same issues, and I know how to channel my higher self while I'm doing this, that I'll just speak to them from what I'm hearing my higher self say to lead them and guide them. But it doesn't happen very often that even the backdoor method doesn't work.
When you are in that session, is it kind of like me dreaming? Like, what would I hear and see? Is there some kind of guidance that you could let us know what that would feel like?
Yeah. So I have all my clients watch a video that I've recorded, and I tell them that we're stepping into the right side of our brain. We're normally walking around in the left side of your brain, the analytical, I'm here in reality, get real, be real, versus artists, musicians are all in the right side of their brain. They're in that creative side of their brain. Put an image in your mind of your brain and you're in the left side, walk through a door to the right side, then shut that door. And this is the realm of all possibility and all impossibility. So if you feel like you're seeing another life, and you're making it up. You feel like you're making it up and you're like, I see this chicken looking creature with 3 toes. Like, what? And you feel like you're making it up and you're doing it right. Because to your ego mind, the left brain, you are totally making this up because again, the ego, the persona that you've created here and now has never lived another life. And so you will be making it up to that part of you. And we need to stop identifying as the ego. I mean, I had a woman, let me tell you super quick. Is that okay if I tell you a super quick past life story? She had a past life where she said, oh, the grass is like this bluish green. Well, right there, I knew we were not on Earth. So then she said, I see this, like this ship, like this spaceship looking thing, a little ways away from me. And it looks like a windmill without the arms on the windmill. It looks like that kind of shape. And so I led her over there. And she said, yeah, this is my spaceship. We just landed because we had to do some repairs on the ship. Okay, so what do you do? And she said, well, I'm really, really, really tall. And I've got long fingers with little suction cup things on the end of my fingers. And I said, well, what is your job? What do you do? And she said, I use these suction cup things to climb up the side of the spaceship to do repairs on the outside of it. And I'm really, really tall. She kept saying, I'm really tall. So then I asked her to go in the spaceship and tell me what that was like. And she said, I'm so tall that I actually have to fold myself in half to get inside. And I said, does that hurt? She said, no, it's just like crossing my arms. Okay. So she went inside and I said, tell me what it's like inside. And she said, there's all kinds of buttons and knobs and screens and there's all these beings that don't look like me. And they're sitting in these chairs, but you can't see the chairs until you actually look and try to see the chair. Then the chair appears to you. And I said, what do the beings look like? And she said, they actually look like potato spuds sitting on these chairs. And she said, you can't see their eyes or their mouth or their arms until they pop them out or reveal themselves, their eyes, when they use them. But when they're not using them, it just looks like a potato spud sitting in a chair. So imagine if she was not in the right side of her brain, you would say to yourself, oh, that doesn't make any sense. I'm totally making all this up. Let me think of something else to tell Tracy. So you really have to be really open to this and in the right side of your brain, again, in the space of all possibility and all impossibility. You're going to see things you've never even read about before. I had a woman, had one client, this was a while ago. She said in her intake, she said, I want to know what's up with my skin because it's really scaly looking. And I mean, I use lotion all the time. And it's just been fairly recent where it's almost like reptilian-like. It's really, really scaly. And I was like sitting here going, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to taint her session. So I waited until she was in the hypnosis session, and I believe she was an in-between channeler, which means she could remember some things from her session, but not a lot from her session after she came out. And she did have another life as a reptilian, but they're not all reptilians are negative. It's just like any race, any being. But she did have I think it was more than one life as a reptilian. And so I thought it was really interesting that her skin was turning really scaly in this lifetime.
Like literally right now, her human scaly is dry.
She said it was really scaly. She said almost like a reptile skin. That's how she described it to me in the intake.
It's like her soul remembering or taking part of that reptilian.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
In one of the higher self hypnosis sessions, one of the clients was able to tap into the channel of money. So for example, she had a question about why finances and money was so difficult to her and how can she get more of it. In this session, money came through to her to show her that money loves to be spent and not be hoarded. Money loves to be shared with people. Money likes to be seen as happy and not as, anxiety and fear. And she personally got the clarity of how she can think about money so that she can have more abundance of this in her life.
One of your clients channeled in money. It's like we can't imagine that money has an energy or love. Can you kind of describe, like, get into that a little bit?
Yeah, because everything is energy. And so it's not only the energy of money that I've had my clients channel in session, we can channel the energy of different diseases. Clients channel the energy of herpes. Clients channel the energy of HPV, of cancer. And we'll talk to this energy and ask, why are you here? Why are you visiting her or him? What would it take? What is the purpose? What is she meant to learn? What does she have to do to learn it? What would it take for her to no longer need you to be in her life as a teacher? And so hearing from that disease or that virus or that sickness or even money, how did she attract more of you? How did she attract more of you and keep you around? It's really interesting, and everyone gets a different answer. I've channeled different laws before. You have the law of magnetism, which underneath that is the law of attraction. Then you have the law of truth, the law of knowledge, the law of wisdom, the law of time. So I've channeled the law of truth before, which is my personal favorite. I absolutely love the law of truth. When the law of truth came through the first time, my daughter was under, and because I used to put her under quite often to ask different questions, but I was starstruck. It was like I was talking to a Hollywood movie star. I mean, I had tears coming down my face. I was just in awe and amazement that the law of truth would be talking to me. I thought that was the coolest thing.
Laws having energies, I got mind blown.
Right. Well, like I said, the tree talked to me. It has consciousness. So it would be just like a tree or a plant or an animal or anything. And a lot of times in my sessions, people will ask about their pets. My dog, does he have any messages for me? What's going on with his skin? Why does he scratch so much? Why did he choose me? What lessons am I meant to learn? How is he here to help me? Is there anything going on in his body that I need to know about? Does he like his food? Sometimes it's funny that I'll hear the pet say to them, through my client channeling this, yeah, he would like some more walks though.
Is this for someone who has trauma, or can we do it if we're just curious?
Absolutely, just curious. Most of the clients who come to me have trauma that they want healed, but I do have the occasional person come to me who we get to ask a lot more, I guess I'll call them not quite so heavy questions, where we get to ask a little more light or fun questions. The one woman that comes to me about every month and a half, we are talking to, because our higher selves have different levels. So we are talking to a higher self of her higher self of her higher self. So we call it her higher self times 3. And This is how her higher self has identified itself to us. So it's not something we named it. It was how her higher self said, this is who I am. And I remember saying in the first session with her, so why are we talking to her higher self times 3? And her higher self said, because that is who needed to show up based on the questions you're going to be asking her and the level of questions and the level of knowledge that you want to know from her. And then another woman that I do regular sessions with, that I'm also writing a book with. So we're going to be writing a book on emotions. And we're going to be channeling all kinds of different emotions, but we are talking to her 4D self. And so we get really pretty high level, I guess I would say, high level answers from her 4D self. So much more advanced conversations than I would if I were talking to just someone's higher self, let's say. I had a session twice with a gentleman who we were channeling. He was channeling his 11D self. And I said, wait, how does that work? And the 11D self said, call us Thor. So gave it a name. So Thor said, and Thor had a great sense of humor. It was they were very fun sessions. But Thor said, just imagine we kind of almost kidnapped his higher self. It's part of this collective consciousness. We're all one. Those sessions were incredibly high level. That was way beyond my normal session. And I really had to have all brain cells firing to keep up with Thor in that session, to ask semi-intelligent questions in that session. But it was really, really, really phenomenal. And he was a trance channeler, so he didn't remember anything when he woke up, so to speak. I remember him coming out and calling me later that night because he was listening to the session afterwards. And he called me later and said, I am completely freaked out. I am completely blown away. All I wanted to know was how to lose a little bit of weight and find a partner. And I got this. Like, this is way more than I ever could have imagined getting out of this session.
Is there anything that they won't answer a question? Like a typical question they won't answer?
Sometimes the person's higher self will say, that's for her to find out. That's for her to learn. That's part of her lesson here. So we're actually not going to answer that, or we're not going to do that. So once in a while, I will ask, would it benefit her to have you download Creator's definition of self-love into her? And the higher self, once in a while for my clients, will say, actually, no, we're not going to do that, because that is one of the main lessons she came here to learn, was how to love herself. And we want her to figure that out. And then I kind of joke back and say, yeah, it gives her something to do while she's here, right? She's got to have something to work on.
But if your higher self knows self-love, but you in your physical doesn't, technically you know self-love. So why would you have to relearn it?
It's the remembering of it. It's the joy and the fun in the exploration of finding it again. Because there is only love. Everything else is an illusion. Only love is real. And so we've come through this veil of forgetfulness, and we forgot. And it's kind of the joy of rediscovering it.
This might be a crazy question, but as any clients, or can you technically ask, when am I going to die? Who am I going to marry specifically, like dates?
People do that, but I always, they come to me wanting to do that. And I dissuade them from doing that. Number one, I would never ask someone's higher self when they're dying, even if they asked me to. I just wouldn't do it. It doesn't feel ethical or right of me to do that. It doesn't resonate with me, so I just wouldn't. But I've actually never had anyone ask that question anyway. When am I going to die? As far as other future questions, I remind them that there are infinite timelines, and they could walk out and make a totally different decision than they would have made prior to the session or at any point, and it would completely change the timeline that they're on. Just doing this session here alone has completely shifted your timeline, I tell them. You are not on the same track. It's like a train going, and how the track gets shifted and goes a different direction. You have now just completely shifted to a completely different track. And so every little decision we make can put us on a different timeline. So yeah, we can ask future questions. Is it relevant? It's not really going to be relevant, because it's really going to depend on so many decisions you make and other people make. But we can ask this question: based on the current timeline, what would be best in terms of a purpose or a path or a direction? Or based on the current timeline, this is a good one that people ask a lot. So based on the current timeline, it does not appear your spouse is going to wake up spirit. A lot of people want to know that. Is he ever going to wake up? Is she ever going to wake up? Based on the current timeline, no. And here's the even more fun part. We can tap into other people's higher selves to ask questions. So I have a lot of parents come to me who want to know, why did my child choose to be, or why is my child autistic? What can I do to fix my child? What can I do to help my child with this addiction, or this physical ailment, or this mental disability? I know a lot of what their higher self is going to say, just based on, my experience, but I do ask the question because I want them to hear it from their higher self. And this is a typical answer. So we'll ask, can we tap into their higher self? Can you tap into their higher self? So my client's not going to channel it. We're asking her higher self to speak to her child's higher self. Then the child's higher self will come back and say, your child chose to be autistic for whatever reason. And it's usually because they don't want to fit into the matrix. They did not come here. They've had other lives where they have fit into what we call reality, or the matrix reality. They didn't want that this time. They wanted to be outside of that. So they don't want to be fixed. This is exactly where they want to be. Or with addiction, we've tapped into other people's higher selves, and their higher self has told my client's higher self, you don't understand how incredibly many lessons your child, your spouse, your friend is learning through it. You see it as something negative or bad, and yes, it was part of their pre-birth plan to experience it, to learn these very lessons. They don't need saving right now. It's not seeing things through the eyes of the ego. It's just not. This is seeing things from a much higher perspective.
How has this changed lives for people, for your clients?
It will completely change their life, because you can't unhear what you've just heard. Once you have the knowledge, the wisdom that you've gotten from your higher self, you can't unhear it. Now you can choose not to implement it in your life. You can choose not to learn. Let's just say that example of self-love. You can choose not to learn it. Most people, that if that's their purpose and their path and they've done something like this, they'll go on to maybe fumble a little bit, but they'll go on to learn what self-love is, learn how to set healthy boundaries with others. That's a big thing with a lot of my clients, and learn how to not be such a people pleaser, put themselves first. Not only a lot of new knowledge, but a lot of confirmation. A lot of my clients come out of it and they go, this just confirmed everything I already knew. I want that confirmation, like, okay, I'm on the right path, or okay, I'm doing the right thing, or okay, yes, that was right how I was thinking. I just had a gentleman that did a session the other day, and his big question was, do I stay with my wife? A mental illness. And so he just wanted to know, because it was literally consuming his life. And it's one of those obsessions. It was an obsession, and it was consuming his life. And he was not only trying to provide for his family and be a father and be a husband and be an employee or a boss, but then also deal with this really energetically time-consuming mental illness that his spouse had. And I heard, while we were on a break, I heard from my spirit team, which, I didn't want to share with him, but I heard from my spirit team, she's here to learn. The wife is here to learn the lesson, because she feared that he was going to leave her. She would obsess about this. Like, I feel like you're just going to get tired of me being this way and you're just going to leave me. And so she's here to learn what a powerful manifester she is, that she's going to manifest the very thing that she fears, because she fears it and talks about it and thinks about it so much that she's here to learn that she's going to manifest. And he's here to learn how to establish healthy boundaries and put himself first and love himself first and foremost. His past life, where it was almost identical to what he described was going on in this life. She didn't have a mental illness in that life, but he was still the husband, the same woman, same soul. He was not putting himself first, and he was unhappy in his life and completely unfulfilled. And so when we brought his higher self forward and asked about it, his higher self said, that is exactly why I showed you that life, to show that you're repeating that pattern again. And you have also done it yet another time with this same soul. And you did the same thing. You put her first and yourself last. This is time number 3. We're going to see if you do it differently this time. According to his higher self, she is here to learn how to be on her own and to learn that she is a powerful manifester. And he's here to learn how to put himself first and not sacrifice his life, his mental health, his physical health for someone else.
I mean, usually we want to manifest good things, but it also works in the opposite way, where we're manifesting our fears.
You used the key word, good, because good, again, that is an ego definition. From a higher self perspective, there is no good. There is no bad. Everything just is. So it's not a bad thing for her to learn what a powerful manifester she is.
If you had that same experience in your first life, you died, you remember that. Didn't you technically learn it if you died and kind of remember, oh, I shouldn't do that again?
Yeah, you actually, I hear these all the time in the Life in Between Lives session. You go up in the spirit realm and you're like, shoot, I didn't do it. I didn't learn that. That was my second life not doing that. Okay, let me go back and do it again. And he really was getting it this time, because when he came out of the session, he remembered most of what he said, but not all of it. And he said, this just confirmed what I already knew that I had to do.
Tracy also does something called psychic surgery. What is psychic surgery?
And so psychic surgery is when I will ask, for example, is she holding a trapped emotion of anger anywhere in her body? And can you scan her body and let us know? And the higher self will say, yeah, she's holding it in her stomach. And then I'll say, what does it look like? What color is it? Oh, it looks like black goo in her stomach. So then my next question will be, does she want to hold on to this as a teacher for a while longer? Or is she ready to let it go? If she wants to hold on to it as a teacher for a while longer, I'll actually explore that a little bit more and say, well, what does she want to learn from it? What does she need yet to learn from this anger? So we normally take the slow road of experiencing it. But if we can get it resolved in the session, that's amazing. But if she's ready to let it go right then and there, then I say, could you pull it, send it to Creator's Light, and replace it with maybe the energies of peace and calm and with unconditional love and light, and tell us what that looks like as you do it. And I tell my clients, you're going to be seeing things in your mind. You're going to be feeling things in your body. You might hear things. I want you to describe that in as much detail as possible. so that not only can I hear it, but you have a record of this because you're going to get the recording. I want you to be able to go back and listen to this and put yourself back in that place like, oh yeah, I remember what that felt like or what that looked like. So maybe it looks like creator, maybe it's creator coming down, because it's both creator and your higher self and angels we're working with in these sessions. So maybe it's creator coming down, or a crew of angels coming down with a giant vacuum cleaner and sucking out that black goo out of your stomach, and then describing when it's gone. And then, okay, what does it look like for the energies of peace and calm and love and light to be downloaded in its place? And so, oh, it looks like a shower of pink sparkles coming down and filling every cell in my stomach. And it's just lit up with this pink radiant light. Maybe that's how the client describes it. But then we also can take it in the respect of if the client has a specific illness or disease. I will ask very detailed questions in those instances and ask for psychic surgery, literally based on whatever illness it is that they're having. One of my favorite things to do is say, wait a minute. I don't believe that it's possible that we need to have our physical bodies processing all of these emotions. So, hey, higher self, are you able to create like an energetic tube, so to speak? It starts at their brain. It goes all the way up through their, runs along all of their organs, not through their organs, but alongside of their organs, and carries all of the emotions that they may be experiencing down this energetic tube and exits out in their urine so that their body, their physical body, doesn't have to process these emotions. What if we could just have the emotion flow down this tube like a fire hose, just flow down without getting stuck in any of the organs, thereby creating sickness or disease, and then just have it empty out in their urine. And so I've done that quite a lot of times, and no one's higher self has ever said no.
Wow. So does that mean like if I'm sick today with, I don't know, cancer or whatever it might be, that's based on, or could be based on like an emotion that I cannot take out?
Yes, very much so. And the higher self will ask, what is the reason she has cancer? Why has cancer been created in her body? You want to take it one step further. Why did she create cancer in her body? Everything is a creation. It's mostly for lessons that we want to learn. Or she had a pre-birth plan that she wanted to experience this so her husband could take care of her, because in the last life, she took care of her husband. Maybe it's something like that. But a lot of times it's in our bodies as a wake-up call to show us that we are holding some sort of trapped emotion. And sometimes, believe it or not, person doesn't really, on a deep level, they don't necessarily want it healed. And that sounds kind of counterintuitive, but maybe they lived alone and they were an empty nester, and now it's brought their family closer. Maybe the daughter moved back home and the husband's now giving her attention and talking to her, and she's not feeling lonely or alone anymore. And so she wants to keep it around just enough not to die, but also to be in a position where she feels like the family is going to stay around.
It kind of sounds like a computer Sims game.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about downloads a lot. Can you talk about what downloads are?
So let's go back to the self-love example. So if I ask, would it benefit this person to have you download creator's definition of self-love into her? And tell us what that looks like as you download that into her. So that's a download. And I say, and have her definition of self-love match creator's definition. Because if I asked, does she truly love herself? And the answer is no. Obviously, the definition that she had of self-love is not creator's definition of self-love. So I want creator's definition of self-love downloaded into her, replacing hers or his. Next question would be, can you download in her, I know what it feels like to love myself. I know that it's possible to love myself. I know how to love myself. Because if she or he has never known what it feels like to love themselves, we want to download the feeling of what it feels like. And this comes directly from another modality that I also teach and that I learned years ago called theta healing. So a lot of people will know what that is. It was a method developed by Vienna Steibel. So download what it feels like. Or if they grew up in an abusive home, they don't know what safety feels like. So not only are we going to download creator's definition of safety and have their definition match creator, then we're going to download, I know what it feels like to be safe. I know that it's possible. Like you said, it's just like a computer program. We really are programmable.
So if they download that kind of feeling of not knowing, love, all of a sudden you'll know, kind of like, it's like a knowingness.
It's now in your awareness. And so you can choose to go based on your former ego patterns all you want. There for you to tap into if you want. And when you combine that with all of the other questions you're going to get answered from your higher self, because I almost always include this question, what can she do to have a closer, more intimate connection with her spirit team? So when you combine it with that, it's really tapping into your team and leaning on your team to go, yeah, I'm not feeling safe right now. I'm feeling like edgy. What's going on with me? Oh, it's that former pattern of me being triggered, feeling unsafe or unprotected. Okay, I've got the new download, or hey, spirit team, help me. I'm not feeling safe right now. Help me. What do I do? So it's really just kind of, it's another tool in your tool belt you have available to you to live a completely different life and not fall into the same old patterns that you had when you were just living as your persona.
So how can we tap into our higher selves on our own?
And so mine happened when I went on a self-healing journey, and I really took a look at the trauma that I was holding and really worked on that myself, did a lot of meditative baths where I just would process it and really just get it out. And it really is a lot of processing. It really is. And I would ask Jesus to be there with me and hold me and help me. And I really just felt the love of Yeshua or Jesus there with me while I was processing this, crying about I've had a lot of trauma in my life. And one day I was out walking my dog again, and I said to my team, wow, this is so amazing. Like being on the other side of all this healing work that I've done and being able to hear from my team. You're right here next to me. You're just as real as my dog walking next to me. I can't see you, but I feel you. I hear you. I talk to you, you talk back to me, like I constantly hear you. Why couldn't I do that before? I asked my team. My team said, you know that veil that everyone talks about, the veil between the physical and the non-physical? It really is a thin veil, but yours was black. You couldn't see through it because of all of the trauma and the grief and the pain that you were holding on to. It was just really all consuming for you. Even though you were perfectly able to function in society and hold a job and do all these things, but the real you was just covered in layers and layers of this. And that was just not giving you a clear connection or a clear pass through to the spirit side to really be able to hear us. And that's why once you did all that work, that heavy work, and it was a solid year of heavy healing work that I did. It's really just learning how to live as your higher self, not as your ego self, because you have the choice to identify as your persona or your ego, or you can choose to identify as your higher self. I mean, I have a course. It was a 4-week course I actually offered on my website on how to connect to your higher self or how to be your higher self. And I'm in the process of writing a book on that. And my prayer every single morning, including this morning, before I get out of bed, is higher self, let everything I say, everything I do, everything I think, every word that comes out of my mouth be from you, not my ego. Just want to live and be my higher self. And then my newest one is, this would help people too. What would love do in this situation? What would love say? How would love respond? How would love act? How would love look at that person? Anytime you catch yourself in any kind of judgment, which is easy, when you're living in the ego, it's constant judgment and comparison, is to just stop yourself, and it's being aware of your thoughts. That's really where it all starts, is being aware of your thoughts. Wow. What would love say about her? How would love treat her?
Honestly, I could talk to you for hours.
I have stories for hours.
Yeah. Thank you so, so much.
Yes. And I can't wait to do a session with you. I told you, let's get you on my calendar. We'll do a session. You get to experience it firsthand and just see what it's like.
That's one of my fears. I feel like I'm going to get in my head and I can't be, but I'm going to let go of all of that.
Right. That's why I tell people, if you feel like you're that way, you're going to want to take extra time, even if it's several months, and practice just doing wake time meditations until you can really learn how to not be in your head, just relax into it and just listen to the person's voice. And that's all you focus on, is following in the guided meditation. You just follow their voice, because that's all you're going to do with me. You're just going to follow my voice and the question that's before you, right? It's really being in the present moment and just being right here. What's the question being asked? Feeling into the answer and just allowing it to come through and use your vocal cords to bring the answer through, and not doing any thinking, not being in that left side of the brain.
Amazing. I am so excited. I think that'll be maybe like a part 2 that people can watch.
If you guys made it to the end of the video, let me know what you guys have thought about today's interview. If you guys want to book a session to do this higher self hypnosis, which I am going to be doing as well in a couple weeks, I am so excited and so nervous. You guys can go to her website. I will have the link in the description box. You can book a session with her. There will also be links to her hypnosis sessions with other clients, so you guys can see for yourself how this works and how this transformed other people's lives. She also has a lot of videos on her channel, so you guys can learn more about this. Huge thank you to our teacher today, Miss Tracy. I will upload the video of how my session goes as a part 2, so look forward to that. Remember, like this video if you learned something, and see you guys in my next video.